Welcome back to Pitch Please, the podcast where people who play games pitch ideas to people who make them. Tom, how you doing?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm doing good. All the energy just vanished when you said, Tom, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. How are you, Alex?
I'm all right. I'm excited about next gen of consoles.
Oh, yeah. We're in that cycle now. PS5, Xbox Series 1, XS, or whatever that one's called.
I'm actually not excited at all.
I don't really fucking... They're all available on PC. We're also joined by our regular developers, starting with James.
Hello. Oh, I'm first today. Hi, I'm James.
Quick off guard.
Big More Glurp developer. Go buy that game so I can buy next-gen console.
I'd like to point out that before I do my introduction, that he was doing some crazy finger guns that entire introduction, which I really loved.
Good guns.
And we're also joined by that voice you just heard there, Chris.
Hi, I'm Brunch Club developer and semi-pro goldfish tamer, Chris Yules.
Can you do that?
That one,
What?
I'd like to clarify that what that intro was from Michael Azayamar from the YouTube channel Yogscast Games.
Wait, what?
From the comments section of. Sorry, I fucked that up.
Hang on.
Are you outsourcing these intros?
No, just someone said one, and I thought
happening?
I'd use it, and I'll give him credit. It was on the Brunch Club arcade update trailer, and it made me laugh. So I thought I'd credit him for that.
I personally, I think it's disgusting. You're getting the community to send in ideas for your intros,
I've
which
just
leads
touched so many minds, Tom, that
to hearts and minds.
He said mines, thank God.
Yeah,
Mines.
mimes.
Which does lead us directly into the pitch today, which is a community outsourced pitch. We had another one sent in on the back of the King of Mushan. We've had quite a few pitches sent in. Which
I think
is really
we've had
cool.
at least we've had under. I would say it's not quite double digits.
We've had at least under.
Actually, no, it's not that much.
No, actually, no. Yeah.
We've had over 3, but under 5.
one of our like long-time followers and interactors, I would say, one of my personal favorite audience members, one of my personal favorite listeners, Hugo Troito, at Hugo Troito, that's his name, has sent us a pitch.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through it.
And you'll be happy to hear this isn't 4 pages long.
Okay.
Should we go into Shane's pitch? It's not Shane. Shane is later. Hugo's pitch. Shane is in the first line. It confused me.
Pull it open.
It says here.
Pull the pitch hole open.
Pull the pitch hole. Yeah. Let me just open it. Here it is.
Shit Foley.
Howdy, Pitch Please gang, or Pitch Plus gang. In lieu of the latest episode, I've decided to try and get on this bandwagon that fellow listener Shane started with my own pitch. See, that's why I got confused. I would like to preface this by saying that I've been listening since the start, long before Tom's brother made it cool, which is a weird reference, but sure.
He's trying to ingratiate himself.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening from the very beginning. Also, sorry. Anyways, my idea is a mix between Taxi Driver and Papers, Please, where you play an Uber driver or some non-copyright-free variation of that. So straight away, we need to come up.
Thinking.
Yeah, we need to come up with a non-copyright version. So Super Driver,
Super. I like that.
Great Driver,
SPR.
So the way I envision this working is by dividing it in 3 phases. The passenger assessment, where you receive the request for a ride through the app, try to figure out the client's personality so you can set up your car and driving style to their, or what you think, are their preferences. The other phase is obviously the driving itself, but unlike Crazy Taxi, you want to be rated well by your passenger, so you can't just be fast, you also gotta be safe and possibly entertaining. I'll get onto how a bit later. The last phase is the end of the day, where you can use the money you made to customize and upgrade your car, and of course pay expenses like gas and other maintenance. And then there's a list of features they've come up with. But first, what do you think of that? A passenger assessment, taxi driver, almost like a taxi simulator game, but with a kind of that weird little passenger assessment thing. I think is an interesting quirk compared to just
even
driving
just
a car.
taxi sims, right? Like the idea of a taxi, like Sims do great on streaming and on Twitch and stuff. Like people love playing Just like what would usually be considered quite a boring game where you're just driving a vehicle around or flying a plane or doing something.
Black Cab Sim 2020.
Black Cab Sim, exactly. But the idea of adding something. So already, I think he's kind of maybe onto a winner there, because I don't think I've seen taxi sim
there's bus
before.
sim, there's train sim, there's truck sim. There isn't a taxi sim.
So you've got that. That's a good point. But then also the passenger assessment mechanic, potentially that's kind of an interesting thing to throw in there.
So James, what do you think?
How would you work out I mean, I'm jumping straight in. How would you work out the passenger's personality while driving or ahead of time? Have you gone and hired a PI and go, you've got a report on everybody that could potentially get your taxi?
Well, I think there is a dangerous side to this where I guess you open up the picture and then name and everything through the Uber app or the Super app. And And I guess you just see them and you just assume you're just profiling them. So I guess that's a dangerous side of things. But maybe it has on their profile. Maybe they have a super profile that's linked to their Facebook and everything. And it's just like,
okay, yeah.
I like dogs. So
that's even worse of a privacy concern. If it's linked to a public
Facebook
profile.
It's linked to their Facebook profile or their whatever non-copyright infringing social media platform.
This is like Tinder. It's like Tinder for cabs.
Yeah.
But also they'll have a star rating, right? You're not going to accept anyone. Well, I suppose you probably will initially have to accept people who are low rating.
To accept everyone
because you are also low rating, right?
Yeah.
Well, if the lower your rating, the less you earn, right? So now it's like a status symbol. So you get more upper class work, like you go from working class up to upper class the higher your rating, so you get more money.
I feel like the lower star rating people maybe are worth less. They pay less, or
you're
worthless. Worthless?
No, they are worth less. But as you increase, I guess the higher star rating people, they'll pay more. Maybe or they're more likely to tip, or like. I don't know. They're into journeys,
but they also expect more, right?
They're into some weird ass shit.
They're like, let's go mow down a couple of potential.
Let's run over that homeless man.
Yes,
they just start sacrificing. They begin to sacrifice in the back.
2 stars. Didn't run over the homeless man.
Oh god!
Well, I feel like as a 5-star, speaking as a 5-star Uber customer.
Oh, I'm only 4.6.
Then I'm actually not. Yeah, I'm 4 point something. But I imagine you expect more, right? So you pay more, but you also expect more. So you're going to be expecting like at least the very minimum is several bottles of chilled water on the back seat when you come in.
Several
also some
bottles.
Treats. Maybe it might be very hot day. You might want to. It's a long journey or it's a short journey. You've just been for a run. Maybe you've just been for a run and you want to get home quickly.
Like your first mission, all you can afford is
maybe
mint, is a pack of mints or something. It's like, I've got mints. And you're like, ooh, extra star.
Wait, what do you mean maybe you're diabetic? What's he going to have like insulin? Or like a sugar sweet?
No, you have, it's like one of the initial signs of
ambulance setup in the
diabetes.
Back.
You have
well, this is the thing, right? Can the car change but depending on who your passenger is? Do you have a Transformer car? And
is it set in the Transformers universe?
It's. I'm now driving an ambulance.
Where did that come from?
Now that we've got to, I guess now that you're throwing out ideas, I think now's a good time to go through the feature ideas that they have. So we can actually clear up more of their idea here. I just wanted to see, what was your first impressions? That was like the elevator pitch. Now we've invited them into my pitch hole.
Now we're in the elevator with you.
Yeah. Now I'm going to drop a bunch feature and ideas that might be okay or completely stupid and shouldn't be in the game. Probably more of the later.
That's perfect. That's exactly how this podcast works.
And just as an FYI, I read every pitch exactly as they're written. So passengers have a heightened...
So if you're not a native English speaker, fuck you, I guess, Tom. What a lovely message. To send to people.
I don't want to misinterpret it. Right. It. There might be something in there where I read it slightly wrong. I just want to be sure. Passengers have a hidden or maybe visible satisfactiometer that determines the ratings they give you and possibly tips as well.
Love-onometer.
So immediately, like they're appeasing us here. A satisfactiometer. That's very nice.
That's one of our staples.
And That's another one is your starting rating on a ride adds or subtracts to the passenger's starting satisfactometer. So if you are a higher rating, then they enter your car more satisfied than not, or maybe I feel
I guess they're going to profile
that
you
makes
a little
sense.
bit.
That's a good balance.
I feel like it should be the inverse, though. If I hire a 1-star Uber driver and I get in his car and there's not just vomit everywhere, I'll be satisfied.
Yeah, but you go in with the prejudice of it's going to be a shithole, right? So you're going in already
this guy's going to be
at a level of low satisfaction. So that does make sense. Maybe if you get in and your car is nice, they get a little bump. They get like an immediate, oh, that's nice.
Oh, yeah, I didn't expect that.
Not a shithole bump. Nice.
Exactly.
Two bottles of chilled water here.
That's what I mean. I feel like
several bottles of water. And
if I order a 5-star,
and they have all
if
the
I order a
amenities.
5-star Uber and it's not gold plated and there's not 7 bottles of chilled water for my 5-minute journey, then I'll start lower. So I think it could be the inverse. You can change radio stations and through the passenger assessment, try and guess what they'd like to hear, if anything at all. So yeah, I guess there could be stuff in the assessment where they're just like, wow, really love rap, hippity hoppity.
I feel like there could be subtle things. I think the only interaction you should have is through the reflection of the rearview mirror. That should be that should be the passenger interaction. Okay. So you can see it's very LA noir. Do you know like the very subtle facial? I used air quotes for subtle there. The
like
very
you turn
subtle
on the radio
animations.
And they just almost start vomiting in the back seat.
You've got to try and figure out if you like it. You put on something and you just hear them go, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" And you're like, "I'm not quite sure if they like this or not."
If they start nodding their heads,
come.
You're in. They come. Has that ever happened when you've really liked a piece of music?
You know how much I love ABBA. What do you think the holes in CDs are for? No.
Fuck's sake.
My very thin
I love the idea that you would put on an ABBA track and be like, this sounds so good that you would stop the CD, take it out of the tray and fuck it.
With my thin pepperami-esque penis. And pepperomis come with free condoms.
Oh my God. No.
Oh, no. Okay.
No.
Right. You told me. Right. Sorry, I'd like to clarify.
Tom, please.
After last week's episode, you told me that I should try and be more positive with my ideas. And I should come in.
Fuck it.
It's worked.
You said have a fucking good time. I'm like, well, this is me.
So you heard have a good time and thought, I'm going to fuck a CD with my pepperami penis.
For those who don't know, a pepperami global, it's a thin salami sausage that comes in a
if
wrapper.
It's not global, just Google pepperami penis.
No, don't put the penis as the
shouts at you.
Anyway, a small talk mechanic where you try to relate to the passenger's interests may be upgradable as you buy magazines or something on different topics to increase your options. For example, you get a sports magazine, so now you can talk to the passenger about the latest football game. Yeah, I mean, maybe. That's pretty cool, I think.
Want to see the match last night? See that?
So with me for that, it would be dialogue options. That are contextual, kind of like in Fallout. So, if you have certain magazines back there, you can only have certain options, and therefore, if you buy more magazines by spending your wages, then you can open more options up. I think that maybe then you have different routes to speak to people.
Yeah, I feel like, again, kind of like Fallout, magazines give you a permanent bonus. That's like, the offside rule, so you can talk about that. But then, like, maybe at the end of day phase, that third phase in the game, maybe there's, paying for things, but also maybe you read newspapers and that's an option. And that gives you some topics to talk about in the next day. Or you look up the latest results in the sports ball and then you can talk about that in the next day.
You have to be like, did you see the match last night? But then the guy you're speaking to actually saw the match and knows about it. And he's like, what do you think about Alfonso's play? But then you haven't read. You don't know who Alfonso is. So you're just like,
Alfonso's been running a real fucking shocking season, if you ask me.
You have to start winging it, and if he picks up on it,
the problem is with Arsenal, they always try and walk it in.
That's
so
it.
I like that. Maybe in the end of day phase, you've got only a certain amount of things you can do.
Yeah,
and
I think it
boosts you for the next
day.
day.
Very much towards like the not tonight aspect of things. So you do your shift. Not tonight. Not tonight is the Papers, Please-esque Brexit bouncer simulator.
Yeah,
made by Panic Barn. I've worked with Tim. He's a lovely, very tall man.
There's no more robots, right?
Very tall man.
So they published it.
He's lovely.
There's no more robots. Yeah.
That's what they say about Tim. Fuck, he's tall.
Yes, he is. So I think like you could have maybe after the work that night, you have like 3 actions you can do. One might be watch the football, or read the papers, or look online, and that can set you up for certain contextual interactions the day after.
I think you could also have events lined up, like if you know the next day is like a match day, or if you know the next day is like a rally, or maybe like gay pride, or all these different little things that could be happening in the town, and that ties you into certain. Like then you can say, right, I'm going to read up on these things, so I have more things to talk about with football.
Chris is pulling a face
boys.
because of the idea of a taxi driver talking about gay pride.
No, I was more
in this country.
I was more trying to figure
quite
out
an awkward conversation.
I mean, it's a perfectly good topic to talk about, but how does a taxi driver in this essence of this game prepare for that? Right, we were talking about if you're having a match day coming up, you watch the football. If you know gay pride's coming up, what are you doing?
Well,
reading about?
I was thinking of it, like when Tom mentioned that, I was thinking in terms of. I was thinking in terms of like literally it affecting your route, because if there are parades happening,
well said. Is it like
if there are
Persona?
things happening like parades or Persona? How does it?
Well, in the same way that you've got like. I'll go and study and I can increase my intelligence. I can go and go to the bar and talk with people and increase my social thing. So you actually have to live a whole life as your taxi driver.
I feel like
I feel like
the whole game should be in the car, right? That's because it's a sim of the car, but like you can still do it. Like at the end of the day, you're sitting. I don't know, what are those little the newsstands or whatever. You get a newspaper from the newsstand and you sit in your car.
A newsstand.
And then you read through. You're like, okay, there's going to be, there's a demonstration here tomorrow. I'll know to avoid that route. And maybe that's another thing that we have
actually gone a very long way into this without mentioning, is it Night Call? Is that what it's called? The game is literally set in a taxi. And in that game, you can buy newspapers. It does give you some sort of inclination of events that's going on, but that's all tied around this serial killer case that you're trying to investigate.
Yeah, there's no actual driving. It's just a detective story.
Yeah, it's just a narrative.
So I was going to say, in this, we're actually driving, right?
Yes.
Is it? Are we going towards? I don't know if it actually says it, but is it more towards the sim kind of route or the Crazy Taxi arcade style? Because I feel
he says it's not Crazy Taxi.
Okay.
He very specifically says it's not Crazy Taxi.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I feel like if you're trying to concentrate on certain things like driving, maybe you shouldn't be like, you're going to have to be trying to read through dialogue, like turning the radio on and then looking up at a rearview mirror to see if this person is reacting in a weird way. You're not going to be looking at the road a lot. So I feel like there maybe should be like, I know maybe there are set times when these things happen and time slows or something. I don't know. We can make it very,
a driving sim
over the top
style game. I feel like you could do all of those things while pressing 1, 2, 3, or 4 to go with dialogue. Yeah, I guess you're reading this dialogue, but like maybe the responses are not word for word what your character says in response to this passenger. Maybe it's like Fallout. Sarcastic, yes, no, and sarcastic, yes. So maybe it's got that kind of response. Like maybe it literally just says sports small talk 57%, and there's like a chance of you hitting it off with the student, having a full conversation for X amount of time.
I don't know. I'm kind of into the idea that that's part of the game, is that you've got to try and read, look at the rearview mirror, and focus on the road. I feel
like
that's
a real
kind
taxi
of
driver.
Like a real, that kind of goes in with the idea that you're trying to get in these.
Well, I think the
text
issue
points
drivers
is
don't have to read lines of dialogue because you speak to them.
if you're looking down at below like the steering wheel to read dialogue to respond to this dude, then you're
why is it below the steering wheel? Why isn't it just as a little prompt?
I mean, again, I don't know where Tom's got this UI decision from.
That's just where dialogue appears.
I think he's pulled this one out of his ass. But
that's just where
literally like looking at the magazine while driving, it was just in front of your face.
Like a natural. Would you go for a diegetic or non-diegetic UI system?
Well, no. Like, how would it work if it was diegetic? Like, how would you?
Like, certain cars have head-up displays that are screens, and you could display things on those. You could be driving a
Tesla,
but that would all be. You'd still have to look down for it, right?
But it's still it's part of the car where you look anyway, and it's just like. There's not much of a distance between road and
When I say below the steering wheel, I don't mean you're looking down literally to see this dialogue. I mean, it's like if your viewpoint is the windscreen, the steering wheel, it's like at the bottom of the screen. That's what I meant. It's not like you're actually having to look, like crane your neck around, look in the glove box to see the dialogue options.
I was thinking like maybe if all the interaction that you have or all that you can see through the of the passenger is through the rear view mirror, then like their dialogue comes up as like a speech bubble in the world space of that, right? So you kind of see it on that point of your screen, and then your reactions, like if that's either like if that's a dialogue wheel or if that's just like speech bubbles in a kind of Night in the Woods or Oxenfree style way, they can pop up like anywhere really, like on the but it should be somewhere like in the center of somewhere where you're already looking, right?
It should be
on the actual
the license plates of the cars in front of you,
and you have to hit the correct one.
What if there are no cars in front of you?
It's all flat paddle.
When you were saying dialogue wheel, I immediately was like, what if the options are on the wheel and you turn towards the one you want? You're just swerving over the road as you're having this chat with this man.
Yeah, I feel like there's a correct way to do it. If it's shorter dialogue choices where it's just, one word responses that you can just see really quickly and just say, yeah, that's the one I go for. And then the character says something a lot more elaborate along the lines of that, kind of like Fallout 4. Then that could work. Or maybe it's just positioning them in the correct way. Okay, moving on. Customizables like dashboard bobblehead, postcard on the sun blocker thing. You know what I'm talking about, right? That foldable thing that's on the driver and front passenger seats, whatever they're called. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's sun blocker. Car perfume, a better AC. Maybe as you buy multiple of these, you can swap them out in between rides according to passenger preferences. So yeah, that sort of goes back to what you were saying, James, where yeah, I guess if a passenger likes the smell of lavender, you can bring out the lavender tree thing and hang it from the mirror.
But they're imagining the same base model car that you're not swapping out for the Tonka truck or the.
It's the same. No, I think it's all the same car, right?
You drive, James.
I don't know why Tonka. I meant to say monster truck, but Tonka truck. It's like
taxi drivers, Uber drivers have their car, right? They buy them personally. They own the car, and then it gets
especially
used as
super
part
drivers do.
Super, yeah, absolutely. So it's just your one car, but maybe at some point, if you have enough money, you could invest. You could get a loan to get a new car. But I wouldn't have thought especially if we're going more down the sim route, it's not going to be like, okay, this guy likes action, so I'm going to swap out into a monster truck.
Yeah, fair.
To get him home.
If it was an arcade, I'm imagining a whole like Tracy Island style, quick go get the Lambo out or the rocket car because this person really likes rockets or something.
Yeah.
It's not going to work, is it?
But I do like the postcard thing because maybe you pick someone up from the airport and you find out they've been to Florida. So you're just like, I'll put the Florida postcard up. And then it's like, oh, you went to Florida as well? I just came back from there. And then you have like a big conversation about
conversation topics, yeah.
I don't know how really you'd find out about that in advance.
Yeah, this is getting creepy.
Yeah. This is like, go on a date.
Well, no, but this is where...
When you order an Uber, right? I press the button and it's like, oh, they're 5 minutes away. In that 5 minutes, according to you, they get a full personal history of me.
Well,
but also they should be driving.
But this does kind of tie into something that isn't 100% mentioned in this, but I do want to add it. I think there are Well, it does kind of say it. It says maybe this one is too dark, but perhaps there's a chance of you getting robbed by a passenger. So you need to pay attention to passengers' personal ratings and not pick up everyone. So I think that it's not only passenger assessment, it's passenger vetting. So you need to make sure the people you're picking up, like Uber drivers.
The old stereotypes are coming back into play.
Well, I suppose, but they don't pick up drunk people, Uber drivers, right? Because they have so much hassle.
Well, so I was thinking of using that as an example where you have a person, they've been on, it's late at night, so they're more likely to be, drunk. So maybe like you've got enough time to get 2 more drives in, what's this, but they throw up on the back seat. So now you're like, okay, I have to end my shift early. I've earned less money. So you either go, I won't start picking up drunk drivers again, but also they pay well because it's late at night and they need to get home. Yeah. Or I run the risk of. So like I think you could use that as a mechanic. That again, risk reward of that is that I get more money for doing the late night shifts and the longer drives, but there's a percentage chance they will cut my shift short weird because I need to, not just, I didn't mean weird, I meant like cut the shift short because you need to go clean vomit off the back seat of your car.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
and then that also means that you can't do those little tasks that you wanted to do for the next day. So if there's a match, you can't then go home and watch that because you clean up vomit out of your car, or you could pay for it to be serviced or something like that, and where you pay extra, but you do actually get to fulfill the extra tasks that you wanted to do.
So one way that like potentially you could help vet passengers is, what if there was some kind of connectivity, not multiplayer necessarily, but some kind of online connectivity where other super drivers can leave notes about passengers.
I think that's. I was thinking that earlier. Maybe the information you get from them is from their previous ride, drivers, with Super, right? And like the Super drivers, they leave a note and like, this guy drunk all the time, or this guy
shit himself.
This guy tips. He tips hard. Yeah. So maybe
that's interesting because you could have an actual log. You could have several. You could have 3 out of 4 rides were positive, 1 negative. So you got to weigh up the risk. It's like, one time they were really drunk and they did throw up on the back seat. So it's like, but there's only one time out of 50 rides. So you can kind of
you could also use that to gather the information about it. It could be like,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
wouldn't shut up about football, and you're like, okay, well that's but like
shut up about football,
but like that is a very obvious one, but it's presented in the way that they're just like through the more natural like way of presenting it, rather than go look on this weird profile where he's like supports West Ham. You're like, I don't why is that profile, why is the information on his Uber profile?
The other way that I was thinking about it was that because I don't think it's a huge stretch to imagine like a world where all of our profiles are kind of connected in one big profile that draws everything together, where you have like literally your Uber profile it's not your Super profile.
You mean when Facebook owns everything?
Yeah, exactly. When Facebook owns the world, then you just have one app that you connect to for everything. You order your taxes from it. You buy items from it. You buy your groceries from it. You use it as Tinder, everything. And so this person's profile, you just look at that, and then they have likes and dislikes, and that's it.
In a world with zero privacy, I think if you order a ride through Super and they look at that and it's like, oh, they recently bought a vacuum and a dragon dildo, and you're like, oh, okay, why is that just available for everybody?
What's going on your dashboard in that situation? You can put one on the front, one on the back, like that's
they're just trying things out.
But you can
jump into that. You can just jump into that ride, and apparently you just know that information. That's weird. I feel like the more realistic one.
Were you reading off your Amazon list when you did that?
Shut up, fuck up. Cut that. So I think if you have it as, you can see the person who booked it, all of the reviews they've left for the rides they've had, all the drivers, their reviews of that person. And I guess if they've had thousands of rides, then it collates all the top, 10 or whatever. And you can then say, okay, I can read through these. These are the most useful things. And it's maybe got keywords in there that you can pick up on or something like that, so that you can use that to inform how you decorate your car, essentially. Or how you tailor your drive. how what music you put on, what small talk you give, and that will then increase their satisfactiometer by the time you've arrived. I think that works. I think that's a cool way of doing it.
Yeah. I think that could work as well. Like, I think, like, how about if it was, say, I mean, how are we imagining this? Is it shifts? Are you picking shifts? Like, you're doing an 8-hour shift and you can say, I'm going to do the day shift today, or I'm going to do the evening or the night shift.
I think you could choose, maybe if we say you can, obviously you have a set amount of work hours that you have to do during the day to earn money. Like, whether that's however we want to present it.
You're like contracted or something.
You have room for 3 extra out of work activities, which then covers do you want to like watch the game? Do you want to sit down, just relax? And that might, if you just relaxing might up people's satisfaction because you look like you're just, relaxed and you've slept well, and maybe that is just a passive thing that can happen, but you have to lose out for it. And maybe you can choose when to do those things, which then splits up the time, because otherwise I think you're locked into, I'm stuck on nights now, which means I can only get these type of customer. So I think maybe doing, or unless we switch up throughout the week, so you're like, okay, you have to do 2 days a week on the evenings. But you're an Uber driver. You work whenever you fucking want. So I guess you find like the optimal time for you and what fits with your sort of how you want your meta, like how you want to play the game. And then, because you're not going to get, well, you would get football hooligans at night because they're probably the ones that are fucking drunk. But I feel like if there's a way you like to play, we should encourage that. And that's kind of how you get a different experience every time you play.
I feel like
if there is an end. I don't know how does it end? Does he say?
I don't know if there is, right? It's a sim. It's a sim. Like you just keep going.
Yeah. So I think maybe there'll also be certain shifts in the game. Loads of other super drivers around that time as well. So maybe there's just less people to pick up. Or again, the late night ones, there's probably quite a lot of people around driving, but there's also quite a lot of people requesting rides, but they're higher risk because they could be drunk or throwing up or whatever.
I think the events shake it up.
Yeah.
So you could have a whole week where it's like, it's the Olympics. A lot of shit's happening.
Yeah. Where do we imagine, have they mentioned where this is set?
They don't.
I imagine.
Can we choose
London.
where it's set? Or is it a predetermined single location?
Where do you think it's set, James?
I mean, I'm feeling like it's in a busy, it has to be in a busy city, doesn't it?
I was imagining London.
You're not going to have
enough.
enough.
Game. It's got to be Germany. All
That's
the
true.
Sims are set in Germany.
It's Germany.
Honestly, I've driven buses around Berlin, and I know my way around Berlin now. So
is it Berlin?
I'm Berliner at this point.
But I don't know. There was something quite appealing about the idea that you might be able to choose like somewhere a bit more lazy town, like suburban. You might get some interesting characters, but that doesn't quite work. That works if it's kind of arcadey, but if we're going very sim, so it's kind of like you need to live somewhere.
You need population.
And you need population.
If you edge it more towards this narrative story where the game is less about the driving and more about just interacting with people, then I feel like you can get a much more diverse and interesting cast of characters in some small village somewhere, right? Maybe.
The problem
You're the
is
only Uber driver in an entire village, so you meet everybody.
Yeah.
Perfect. But the only problem with that is that you can only record so many voice lines. You can only write so much dialogue. It's gonna if it doesn't have an end.
Nightcall again has no voice acting in it, and that's a game that has only a certain amount of. It has an end, right? Okay, yeah. I think let's go through the rest of these real quick.
Yeah. Fire away.
So. Here's this thing we sort of touched on before. Gas has to be refilled during the day, so be sure to keep an eye on it. And don't start a ride with while too low for risk of getting a bad rating. While too low on fuel, a risk of getting a bad rating or losing a passenger altogether. Yeah, so I mean, you need to keep that topped up. I guess like car condition is a thing as well. Obviously, fair enough. Passengers like you to be fast, but maybe some don't like you going over the speed limit or taking less legal shortcuts, while others might not care as long as you're fast. So I guess, that can tie into the assessment. Like, I need to get there really quickly, do that, chase that car, and you just do that.
I think that could work really well, like in terms of like having to gauge what you think the passenger is going to be comfortable with in terms of like you like you're cornering or something. You could see their reaction if you take a corner quite quickly or quite aggressively, and then you can try and gauge their reaction in the mirror.
The thing is, this is
massively sobbing.
This is written in the perspective of a passenger likes you to be fast, but the driver doesn't. They get more money the slower it is, right?
No,
Exactly.
More mileage they take.
Uber's
Don't they?
fixed.
Not on like Super or Uber, right?
Oh, Uber's fixed,
It's
is
like
it?
this is
Uber, because you get a price before you go in with Uber. You get a range, and then it's basically
It's a
And then you
range,
can
isn't it?
tip.
It's like between a tenner and 15 quid. So you
This is
could
the
always
most it
try
would
and
cost.
get an extra couple of
But
turns
in a black cab, even when if you're stuck in 4 hours worth of traffic, they're charging you for the 4 hours worth of traffic. I don't think they do it with Uber because you go in knowing the price.
Yeah. But well, actually, this last one, going back to what you said a while ago, Chris, about it, the UI being diegetic or non-diegetic, is he says that he imagines.
Should we explain what that means?
Sorry,
No.
yeah. So basically,
Do you want to do it?
diegetic means. Oh no, Chris, you're the dev. Sorry, you do it.
No, I mean, you know it, so you might as well.
No,
Look,
please.
You've learned, Alex. You've learned from me.
Yeah.
Diegetic. Well, so use Fallout 4 as an example. The menu of the game is in the world, right? So it's not like an overlay.
You're boy, right?
You do have some overlay, but if you turned all that off, all the AP and the health, you could view everything from your Pip Boy. So that's the difference. Is that does it sort of blend in? Does it feel like a natural part of the game that kind of like the notebook in Red Dead? Like the information in that is presented in a way where it's not just going into a pause menu and flicking through tabs. It's presented in a way where he's written it down. It's in a book.
Hugo thinks yes. Hugo says that you should be seeing your car dashboard with your phone on a mount, and maybe menus at the end of the day, or maybe it's all done through your phone to not break immersion.
Yeah,
So he's imagining all menus on his phone.
That's the. I mean, I guess the passenger assessment stage that can be done through the phone. That makes sense. The end of day thing. It's a little odd, but yeah, maybe it could be done through menus in there. Whatever. He's booking.
The way I would do that. The way I would do that for the end of day stuff is that you get text messages from like your partner, and it's the replies are what it is. She's like, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch the football," and like you'll get another message back. It'll be like, "I need a rest," and so you're like, "Okay, maybe that's how you do that." But then you are limited to options, and it becomes a little bit less
kind of
simmy. But I feel like, or maybe it's where you drive. That's how you do it.
Could those events affect your level, like potentially give you things like a debuff or a buff? Maybe not something visible, but in terms of, say if you're working late or you're doing a night shift or you're doing a shift where you would otherwise have to, like where you otherwise would be spending time with your partner or your friend or something. If you can't do it, then you end up having trouble, like relationship troubles or some like personal issues, basically, which then affects. Well, not like nothing that we focus on too much, but it's literally just like, you know, you had to cancel your like going out and seeing your friends. You didn't go to cinema because you were doing this shift. You feel like -1 to happiness, and that affects you're a bit more disheveled. You're less happy.
Oh, actually,
that's going to affect your passengers.
It's that famous it's that weird thing. It's like here's a triangle of things. You can have two, and it's like well rested, you know, likes work and whatever,
or lots of money,
has lots of social, lots of money, and it's like you choose two.
Yeah.
It's very much that. So I think that
well,
could
there
lead
is
into it.
So before I get onto this point I wanted to make, there is this middle one as well. Your car can have problems that happen if you drive aggressively, like a flat tire or something that costs money. Might be severe enough to end your workday early. We touched on that, like cleaning the sick out the back of the car, or repairing a tire, things like that. However, there is this final point. This is actually the last one. Maybe there's an overarching story told by voice messages and texts that you check every morning as you're setting up for work. So like maybe there is a story where you've got this relationship that you're trying to keep. You've got a gun for an arm, and
it won't stop shooting. Yeah,
but that's all done through text and voice messages as well. But that could basically is what you were saying.
I'd like to clarify that me and James hadn't heard of this
Chris,
pitch.
You disappeared.
Hello?
Oh, you're here. Hello, welcome back.
You got muted for some reason.
Well, that's just, a lot of people like to do that, Alex. I was just saying that me and James hadn't heard this pitch before. We've ended up, you two have obviously read it, so you might have chucked in a few ideas here and there that were from it, but me and James haven't. So I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where if the way we do like playtesting and stuff is you never listen to one person because they're usually wrong. But if everyone starts saying it, then it's usually the general consensus is that thing they're all saying is the correct thing. And I feel like there should be the opposite of if we've come up to the same conclusions without knowing the idea that is written down, then it's genuinely it might be that's the way to go with it, right?
That's what
that was a compliment, by the way. I would like to. It didn't sound like one.
This pitch exists in some form, and we've read it, and we've just pitched it to you, and you've said basically everything that was on this list before you even read any of them out. Which means, you know what? That's actually a pretty solid pitch.
Well done, Hugo.
Well done, Hugo.
What's it called? Did he give a name?
This is it's the title of this document is Uber Game Without Title. So straight away,
super.
We need to rip super? Uber out of there.
Super.
Yeah,
I like super.
Taxi driver super.
The thing is that Uber is also a very German word. So I mean, it works with the German sim. So we got to try and I feel like.
Oh, I see.
Let's figure that. We'll slap the umlauts back on. Because Subaru,
and you drive a Subaru,
cow.
even though that's not
Subaru.
German.
Yeah, Subaru driver.
Subaru.
What's driver in German?
The one other thing
it's going to be a very aggressive
I wanted to say,
Super
going
driver.
back to the story.
Jesus.
Going back to the story stuff, like I do really like the idea of having a story being told by voice messages or text and things, but I feel like that means that it takes away the idea of it being like a long form jump in and play for a few. You just continue, like there's going to have to be an end at some point.
There's if it's got a story and if it's more narrative driven, then cool. I think that's a cool game. If it's a sim, then and it's also got some kind of maybe randomly generated characters that just come in and give you some dialogue every now and then cool. I guess that will also work. It's which one do you want to focus down, right? If you want to focus the story, then the sim side thing takes a little bit of a dip on the side. If you want to focus on the sim, then the narrative character stuff with the passengers that you pick up will also take a little bit of a dip. So it's one or the other, I think, is how this works.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's it. I think as much as I love like story-driven games, like narrative-focused games, I feel like this would work much better, be much more satisfying as a sim game where you can just drive around this whole city and jump in. I feel there's going to be more to do. We could take more advantage of it. I don't know what you guys think.
No, I agree. The story side of things I felt would feel a bit tacked on to me. It wouldn't feel like that was the main purpose of the game, so therefore wouldn't get the attention that it needed to make that good. The other side thought was that maybe you get a list of passengers that you can choose from at any one time. And maybe if you keep choosing the same passenger that you can build up a relationship with that way. But that's a bit like, again,
and go
creepy, creepy taxi driver kind of, or whatever, there's a fine line here, I feel, with the whole creepy side of things and the really good sim kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think we go into forming relationships with your passengers. If you pick the same guy again, they're like, oh, hey, I remember you, but you already know their interests. You already know their likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
So that's almost like guaranteed money.
Have you ever remembered an Uber driver?
No.
Have you ever had the same one?
I don't think I've ever had the same one twice.
I don't, well, I wouldn't know. I don't speak to anyone I get in a car with. It's a much better experience if I'm silent.
That's a whole other thing that we don't have time to go into now, but we never even discussed, is the idea that there's going to be plenty of people that just don't want to talk. They don't want to engage with you in any way.
That's some of the best Ubers I've ever had is just sitting in silence, and I'm just none of this. Good. I don't need small talk. I don't want no talk.
When you as the driver have the opportunity to put on what you want to do, you do what you want. All right, okay, I'll put on 108 FM and listen to those tunes.
Yeah, I always say that to Uber drivers. They're like, do you want it? And I was like, no, it's your car. You're giving me a lift somewhere. Do what you want.
Just don't play ABBA, because
I will.
You don't know what's going to happen.
I'll start jumping.
You'll have to license clean the shit out of this.
This is going to be this will be an expensive game.
I've got a Hoover and I've got a dragon dildo in my bag.
Let's see where this goes.
The order just come in.
Tom, do you can you give us a quick rundown of what this game now is?
So this is called Super Driver. It's got to have a better name. It's super car sim. It's a game where you are Uber/Super driver, picking up passengers that you vet/assess before it begins based on their previous ratings and reviews in the Super app. And you use that to change up your car, change up your driving style, put on the right music, put the right scents in the car, I suppose, with the right, like, those weird tree things you hang from the rearview mirror.
Bit sexy jazz.
So that you can get the best satisfaction rating, satisfactionometer increase with your passengers.
Yeah.
Give them the best drive, increase your rating, increase your money, do daily tasks in between the shifts that you pick up to find out about the future events. Maybe it's a football game, maybe it's like just an event in the city that is then tailors you towards a certain play style. Or maybe you just ignore it. Maybe you just go for the late night shifts and have to deal with
maybe you just
drunkards.
fucking run people over. Maybe you just ignore it and go nuts.
Yeah, maybe it's also GTA. And the goal of the game is to just continue making money and improving your car and buying new things and getting magazines and newspapers and living your life as a super driver.
Yeah. Bam. Chris. What
Hello.
are you thinking? How you
I'm
feel?
literally typing into Google Translate random words and then translating them to German just to get that really, really authentic. Nothing good so far. Nothing good so far.
What do you think of the game?
I enjoy Papers, Please, and I like Not Tonight. I like that side of it. The only thing I have an issue with is that I feel like it needs an end. I don't know how. I don't know if there's like a goal that you have to achieve, but I feel like leaving it open-ended is, from a developer point of view, it's a lot of work because you need to have thousands of voice line characters, dialogue options, more so than like Fallout or something like that would have, because they all have end dialogue points and then they just repeat the same phrases because you've ended your missions with them and stuff.
Yeah.
Leaving it open-ended and having recurring characters as well is a lot of work. So you need to be careful like with that. But also I feel that you're just going to lose people's attention, because if you give someone a goal, it gives them something to aim for and want to come back and play, which is weird in sim games. I suppose the goal is just to earn loads of money. I've gone back to playing sim games, and it's not like I've picked them up and gone, "Oh, that was fun," but there's no goal. For me, it's a very loose goal. Even with Flight Sim, like it's just been like, I've gone from playing a little bit of Flight Sim to just playing with, hey, do you want to go fly around, the Amazon rainforest to see what it's like? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like that's the goal. It's like we're just seeing what things are like. Like we don't have.
I feel like the overall goal is to raise and maintain a high level profile, right?
In like the campaign mode, if it's the same as a campaign mode in Truck Sim, right? You just make money, you buy more trucks, you buy a fleet of trucks, you get bigger contracts. There is
make your own
campaign.
super.
You then create your own corporation and take over the world. So I think that's pretty much what the campaign mode is. If this is a sim more than it is a narrative game.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about you, James?
I mean, honestly, I don't really play sim games all that much, so quite thinking about it in the abstract is quite difficult. But like, I like the idea that you could go a narrative route. Maybe it's like you're going cross country from one side of America to the other, and to get from one side to the other, you do the taxi driving on the side, and you get all these different towns and cities or whatever.
It's like a road trip.
But that's a bit of a curveball to what we've been talking about. In terms of the sim, what I really like is this idea that I don't know whether the drive-through, I want it to be set in America, because the idea of everything's drive-through there. So it would be like, okay, I need to eat. I'm going to go drive-through. I need to get my prescription, go drive-through.
So you live in the car, essentially.
I need to poo.
And I really like that idea
that
this idea that you live with we're all attached to our phones, but as an Uber driver, you're attached to your car as well, and it becomes like a part of you. So you've got your contact with the outside world with the phone, and then you've just got your car, and that's it. You can never leave the car. Like maybe you just literally live in the car, and you can buy all the things, all the scents and all the customization in a drive-through. You drive through Halfords or something, and you're like, yes.
I mean, I like that you also, the passengers you pick up, you're like, oh, I'm dropping him off like right around the corner from this place. Perfect. And you maybe tailor who you pick up based on their drop-off locations or pick-up locations, so you can just say, right, I'm just going to really quickly just get this thing before I continue my shift or whatever. Yeah. Like maybe that could tie into it quite well.
I agree. I agree with Chris's points. It is hard to design it with no real end goal in mind. Just unless you're starting, say, your own rival cab company, but that doesn't really work with the idea that you need to vet people because you need all that data from all the other Uber drivers.
And you'd have the app infrastructure for that already existing.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so the third thing to think about is like, if there was a narrative in terms of, say, a relationship that you're trying to cultivate, is it just that you're trying to get enough money for you and your partner to buy a house or like go on holiday and stuff like that? Is that the goal?
A little bit boring at the start of the game. It's just raise 300,000 so you can buy a house.
What if you have like a debt? What if there is a debt?
Your car. You have to
pay off your car. Yeah.
God, imagine going into a job where you've basically paid for the privilege of having that job, and it's shit.
Yeah,
that's like it's like going to work at like Tesco and paying them.
Yeah, I mean, we could have another uniform. We could have another entire episode of a podcast if you want, talking about the how fucked up the world is. If you want, Chris.
That's true.
That's next week.
But in conclusion, I like the idea. I think it's great. I would play it.
Yeah.
And Tom, I feel like we're both pretty into this, right?
I mean, yeah, it's exactly the same as what James and Chris said. It's just if this is a taxi driver sim and the small, and you're basically ripping out like 90% of what this pitch is, then where it's the small talk, the vetting of customers. I mean, vetting to a point, like you're just picking them up. And all they are is a person sitting in your car that pays you to get to a destination. And random events might happen, like they might throw up, so you might have to take some time off. Like if you boil that down, that entire structure down to its base form, I think this could work as a really cool sim game. Just driving around as a taxi driver, experiencing that in a small form. I think, if it has, on the inverse though, if the sim thing takes a backseat and it becomes a narrative game that has a story and we'd have to inject some kind of story in there, kind of like Nightcall, then I think, again, that would work really well. So it's just a choice of which one should it be. And I think either one works.
What do you think?
Yeah. There is a final thing on this pitch. Another thing that I wanted to tack on as a different mode, but probably should be a separate thing entirely, is an Uber Eats mode where you deliver food to customers.
Then it's all about speed.
That could be good because
that's
you
the
could
arcade
have
mode.
A thing where you have you deliver food, but then the customer that gets in can smell it, and you're like, you've just delivered your food and then you've gone pick up a customer because there's no more like food orders, so you have to either wait more to then pick up things or hope that more food orders come through.
But
it can be a good balance. It also sounds like a good DLC, Tom.
Yeah,
more money.
Food can't rate you either, so you can drive as fast as you want when you've got food in the car. So that does make it like the arcade mode.
But if it's a fucking mess when you hand it over. You're gonna
shout out to the guy that delivered a pizza vertically to me not too long ago. Just saying.
Wow. Thanks, guy.
I rated that down.
Yeah. And then Hugo also says, well, that's it for me. I hope you can take anything of value from my pitch hole, and you're welcome to take a peek anytime. With love, from Hugo. Heart, kiss.
We have gone head into your pitch hole, and we've pulled out some gold, I think.
Yeah,
I think you smashed it.
We all went elbow deep into your pitch hole, and I think we wrenched out some real gold there.
6 elbows.
Could we wash our hands?
8 elbows. Wait,
you're using both elbows? Why not one?
We were only using our elbows, weirdly.
I know what the game should be called. Based in honor of our pitcher, it should be Who Go.
I hate that so much.
How about like Hugo, I go, we go, we all go.
We all go.
Super.
Kill ourselves because of what you just said. No.
That's how I feel every week, Chris.
Wow.
That's how I feel every week.
That was disgusting.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Hugo.
Oh, Alex, no. Just before I go, I need to do our sponsor for this episode. Pepperami.
Yes.
The people's sausage. Thanks to Pepperami for sponsoring this episode.
CDs.
If you want to sponsor an episode of Pitch Please, you can have great... ad reads where we compare you to a penis.
Compare it to his penis. Yeah.
Pepperami did not sponsor this episode.
And a condom.
The truth.
Well, thank you very much. Perhaps next week will be sponsored by something else that Chris can compare his penis to.
Yeah.
And then put it inside a CD in the hole.
And have a CD.
Thank you very much for listening. We'll maybe have another listener pitch next week, but if we don't, please continue sending them over.
Send them in.
Tom, where can they send them to?
You can send your pitches in, and please do, to @PitchPlusPod, Pitch Please Without the Vowels, Pod with the Vowel on Twitter. Send it to us, and we will definitely read it and maybe have it in the episode.
maybe have it in the episode. We'll see. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.